This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, that notification button. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelist tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King, Director of Operations for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, Scott Crawford, Ball State athlete Paul Havicott. We're joined by a special guest tonight. He's perfect for tonight's debate because tonight's debate is the top 5 defensive shortstops of the last, 40 years now, so all the way back to 1980. He was a 9-year shortstop with the Royals and the Cardinals. He's ranked 87th all time for total zone runs as a shortstop. In 1996, he led the AL in fielding percentage, 4th in range factor and double plays turned, and 3rd in total zone runs. So we have David Howard here. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. As always, we'll have our Q&A after. Since it's the top 5, we'll be discussing 8 players. We're going to jump in, start with Brian.
All right. So I got Omar Vizquel, one of my favorite players of all time, just because of how selfless, kind of scrappy type player he was. He was never going to hit a bunch of home runs or get onto the highlight reel with his bat, but he did so many of the little things, like lead the majors and sack flies 4 times and stretch a lot of doubles and the triples. His speed and his attention to detail helped him become a great fielder as well. He was one of the best fielders of his era, regardless of position, and his era remarkably stretched from 1989 to 2012 when he finally retired at the age of 45. Omar earned 11 Gold Glove awards during his career and had a 9-year streak from 1993 to 2001, and he was able to win one in Seattle and Cleveland and San Francisco. And some of those stadiums were a little bit difficult to field at. He is ranked 9th in career WAR and was ranked in the top 10 5 different seasons. 6 times he was ranked in the top 5 for range factor. 6 times he had the best fielding percentage among ML shortstops. And Omar's career fielding percentage is 985, and that's the best in the history of the major leagues for shortstops with at least 500 games played. So it's hard to top what that guy brought to the table.
Dave, your thoughts on Vizquel? I know you'd mentioned to me that he got a Gold Glove one year when you thought maybe you were due for it. So what are your thoughts on Omar?
I loved watching him play. One of the stories I have about him is Chris Bosio's no-hitter in Seattle. The last out of the game was a chopper over the mound, and I don't know who hit it, but I know Omar came in. Now, this is a no-hitter, not a perfect game, so he bare hands it coming across over behind the mound in between second base, bare hands it and throws the guy out to end the no-hitter. Now, in a no-hitter, if he goes to bare hand it and he misses it, that's a hit. He had enough cojones to bare hand it and throw him out to end the no-hitter. I always remember that. I don't know how smart it was on his part to do it, because it would have cost Bosio a no-hitter, but he impressed me every time I saw him. I would go out and watch him take ground balls and stuff early, and just he could do some things with the glove that I never even imagined doing. So very, very, very good player.
Brian, what did he play? 20 years? It was a long time.
I think it was 22, I believe. Yeah,
22.
25.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible, and to play shortstop that long is even more incredible. So
he turned himself into a good offensive player too. The older he got better and better, which was pretty impressive too.
Yeah, a lot of speed on the bases too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to our next player. That is going to be Cal Ripken Jr. So Baltimore Oriole from 81 to 01. He was an all-star all but his first 2 seasons. So he's a 2-time Gold Glover. He has finished first 5 times in defensive WAR and top 10 times. So career ranking of 4th all time in that category. Assists, he's led the league 7 times and top 10 11 times. Career ranking of 3rd. And that's not just in the last 40 years. That's all the way back to when they started keeping these stats. So, and he's 5th all time in games played at shortstop. I'm only trying to prove he's top 5 tonight. So he's already top 5 all time in those stats. He's got 6-time putouts leader and 11 times in the top 10 on that. Total zone runs as a shortstop, he's ranked 3rd all time. So he's got all the stats. Now the thing with Cal, I think a lot of people remember him for being a great hitter, and he had some very magical moments, of course, and being baseball's Iron Man. That's always going to stick out in people's head. I don't think that record's ever going to be broken. I mean, these guys take too many days off now. Plus, the managers are always got to get the players rest. So we see that a lot. So I don't think the Iron Man record is going to be broken. But as the stats show, he is one of the best fielders of all time at shortstop. Your thoughts on Cal and just that streak? I know we're talking about like the fielding, but what do you think of that incredible Iron Man streak?
The streak will never be broken. I mean, they say records are made to be broken, and that'll never be broken. No chance. He was as tough as they came. He was on my list when I was trying to put together the athletic ones, the fundamental ones, and then just really good all around players. And he fit into two of the three categories. He wasn't the most athletic, but he seemed to always position himself in a place where he didn't have to go too far. Like if the pitcher made the pitch, they hit it right where Cal was standing. So, that's where sometimes I didn't really understand the defensive metrics that much, because if you positioned yourself and you knew where they were going to hit it, if the pitcher made the pitch, you're standing right there, so you didn't really get credit for any range or the range factor. I really don't understand that much about it, even though I've scouted forever. I'm more of an eye test guy, when I scout and look at guys, but he was always there, really, really fundamental. But like his toughness and the way he went about it, he rarely ever argued with umpires. He just, he played the position, as good as, anybody that I've played against. And he just positioned himself so well that he really didn't have to have the super range like a Jay Bell or, somebody we might talk about later.
And hats off to an honorable mention, A-Rod, for the classy move at the All-Star game and Cal's last season. When the game started, he let him take shortstop, and A-Rod went to third for that. So classy move there. Let's move on to Scott.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with the Wizard, Ozzie Smith. Talk about some hands at shortstop. He won 13 Gold Gloves in a row, basically from 1980 to 1992. He won every single year, Gold Glove Award. His D-WAR, not even talking WAR altogether, his D-WAR for his career was 44.2. In those 13 Gold Gloves, his D-WAR was 3 on average every single year. Most people, hard to get a 3 combined when you do your O-WAR and D-WAR combined, but he did it just defensively. And you could argue that he didn't win in 1979, but he was probably the best shortstop in 1979 as well. But he didn't get a Gold Glove that year. He's number 1 in assists all time for shortstop. He's number 1 in total zone runs all time for shortstop. He's 4th for most games played. He's 9th for most putouts. So I mean, he did it forever, from the barehanded plays. He only ranks 26th in fielding percentage, but I think that might be due to he got to a lot of balls, and maybe didn't get the throw off or tipped off his glove where other guys wouldn't even have touched the ball. He was so good. So Ozzie, I mean, you got the backflip going in every game. He's in Cooperstown, and he wasn't an amazing hitter. I mean, he obviously held his own, but he was all about defense and doing his flips and playing great D for the Cardinals.
The one X on his career is Brendan Fraser struck him out to end the World Series in the Scout. So we got came up to bat. So Dave, your thoughts on Ozzie? Is it the Wizard of Oz and everyone else?
Yeah. Vizquel's close for me. I mean, he didn't have the flash. And I played against Vizquel. I didn't play against Ozzie because Ozzie was in the National League and we didn't have the inter rival or inter divisions or whatever. And so I really never saw him play live too much, but just watching all the plays and, going on the internet and watching the stuff that he did. I mean, the dive and play off of, I think Bob Horner hit it when he was playing for the Padres, diving up the middle and it kicked back, behind him and he barehanded it and got up and threw him out. I mean, that's got to be one of the best plays ever. I mean, you can't get much better than that, laying out and just having that athletic ability. Like I said, when I was making my list of athleticism and all that stuff, Ozzie covered all three. Because he was very, very fundamentally sound when you watched him field a ground ball. I mean, super athletic, obviously, with backflips and just the plays that he made, and and played for a long time. The longevity to keep yourself healthy. He's right up there. He's got to be right up there with the best defensive shortstops, and I'll throw Ray Ordonez in there too if I could give him a nod, because he played on a parking lot and at Old Shea. So first time I played at Shea, I went over to him and I gave him a hug and I said, "God bless you for fielding the way you do on this thing." But yeah, Ozzie's one of a kind.
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, I'll kick it off with Alan Trammell. And Alan played with one team, the Tigers, from 77 to 96, playing over 2,293 games. He's offensively solid. He had 185 home runs, over 1,000 RBIs, over 2,000 hits. He won the Silver Slugger Award 3 times. And all told, he finished with a respectable batting average of 285. But gearing over to the defensive stats, he had a Gold Glove, several Gold Glove wins, mostly in the 80s, winning in 80, 81, 83, and 84. He was a World Series champ in 84 and was actually the World Series MVP. He's a 6-time All-Star, and the Tigers ended up retiring number 3 later on. Ended up going on to manage the Tigers and the Cubs and the Diamondbacks, but he was a Hall of Fame inductee in 2018. He only had 235 errors, had 1,321 double plays, and a 976 fielding percentage. He, along with his teammate Lou Whitaker, they hold the AL record playing together the most at 1,918 games and set a major league record by turning more double plays than any other shortstop, second baseman combination. The Trammell-Whitaker duo won Gold Gloves together twice in 83 and 84, and that puts him on a list of 8 shortstop second baseman duos who have won the honor in the same season while playing together. So another interesting fact, I guess, offensively about him is he collected his 200th hit of the season and 15th 1,500 career in the same at bat on October 1st, 1987. So I think the Alan Trammell-Lou Whitaker duo was really good, but that's basically Alan Trammell.
Dave, it's funny that he brought up Whitaker too, because I was going to say we can't talk Trammell without talking Whitaker. It's like bread and butter; they just go together. I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, obviously on Trammell, but the duo and how they could just turn things.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're playing, the thing you always want to be called is, the biggest compliment's being called a baseball player, and that's when I watched Alan Trammell play. That's what I saw was just a baseball player. I mean, he did everything right. Like I said about Cal, you never saw him arguing. He just went about his business, loved his throwing motion, because there's no way I could get my arm that high up like he did. But he was so smooth. He could hit. He was just a true professional. And it's somebody that, if I were to tell my son, hey, just watch this guy play, and that would be somebody that I would mention, just because of the way he went about it. And he was always really, really nice. I mean, everything about him, exuded just a baseball player and a professional.
Took him a while to get into the Hall of Fame. I was surprised by that. I thought he was, maybe not first ballot, but second or third ballot. I couldn't believe how long it took, but
yeah.
All right, let's go back to Brian.
All right, so I got Dave Concepcion. He became the 17th Venezuelan player to appear in the major leagues back in 1970, and he played 19 seasons in the big leagues. He won 5 Gold Glove awards during his career, and he combined with second baseman Joe Morgan in Cincinnati to create one of the best middle infielder duos of all time. So another great duo here. In fact, Bleacher Report ranked them the number 2 ever, and Cron.com ranked them the best ever. Both were vitally important to the success of the multiple champion Big Red Machine in the 1970s. As a fielder, one thing that Dave did that was very interesting was he perfected the one bounce throw to first baseman Tony Perez. And this method took advantage of the smooth artificial surface at Riverfront Stadium. All time for fielding percentage, Dave's mark of .9706 ranks as the 69th highest total among shortstops in Major League Baseball's history. And of the guys ranked above him, he logged more innings at the position than all but 5 of them. So I really like Dave. I think he definitely should be in this discussion tonight.
Dave, do you know anything about that throw Brian was talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
First 3 or 4 years we had turf in Kansas City, and it was definitely usable. After playing a bunch of games in a row. But I remember watching that duo, him and Joe Morgan, back in the day, playing against my Red Sox, in '75, and he was always he was a lot like Trammell. He was so consistent. So his fundamentals were great. I think he led a lot like Jeter, more with leadership than numbers. And I really enjoyed watching him play. I was younger, obviously, when I was watching him play, but I know he had a big effect talking to other Venezuelan shortstops as I came up on them, and that's a credit to him as well.
So we're going to move on to Jimmy Rollins. Played from 2000 to 2016, all but 2 seasons with the Phillies. He's obviously remembered for his time in Philadelphia. He is a 4-time Gold Glove winner. His fielding percentage is 14 times in the top 10. It was first 4 times, and he's got a career ranking of 4th. And he's 12th all time at turning double plays. So I don't have a lot of stats from Jimmy. I looking at the list tonight, I know I'm representing him and everything, but I kind of have him maybe at 7 or 8 on this list tonight. But what I will say about him is that he'd make the plays that he should make. And, you didn't have to worry about him, having a flub on a routine play. And he could dive and go all out too. He made a lot of spectacular plays. I don't want to take that from him, but he certainly made the plays that matter. And we've talked to pitchers on this show before who have said, I'll take a guy who fields everyone that he should over a guy who's trying to make plays he shouldn't and messes it up. So I'll throw that in there about Jimmy Rollins. Your thoughts on Jimmy?
Yeah, same thing you were saying. That's what when I was with the Red Sox and Cubs and Mets, instructing, it was all about making the plays you're supposed to make, and don't try to make the routine play look better than it actually is, because a lot of guys try to dress plays up and try to be quick with their hands or do something kind of flashy. And that's not what managers want. It's not what pitchers want. They want you to make the routine play and just get the out and let's move on. And that's a credit to him for doing that, because he was so athletic. And usually the athletic guys are the guys that try to be really quick with their hands and try to differentiate themselves from other guys. And, from what I saw of Jimmy, he didn't do that. And plus he was a pretty dynamic offensive player as well. So that, his all around game was obviously really good.
And he's got a World Series ring. Let me throw that in there. So, Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I had to. First pick on my list was one of our Hall of Famers, and Tony Fernandez. Obviously being a Blue Jay fan, and the biggest downfall of Tony on this list is he played the least amount of games of everyone on this list. So some of his stats don't necessarily stack up. That he didn't have the longevity of some of these guys, but he won 4 Gold Gloves, 86 through 89. His D-WAR was 14.9 in his career. Probably his just being new to the year, probably 85. He had one of his best defensive years. He could have easily won a Gold Glove in 85. He's got a 980 fielding percentage with almost 1,600 games at shortstop. So you remember from the 80s, you remember his flip, his underhand almost flip. He'd be running sort of towards third base and turn back and flip it over to first to whoever, Willie Upshaw mostly at first base, and it would be right on the mark every time. But he was, for his time in the game, which wasn't overly long, he was the guy in the 80s that you would count on to pick up those ground balls and led those young Blue Jays to a lot of victories in the late 80s.
So, Dave, I have to imagine you probably played against this guy a couple times. What are your thoughts on him?
Absolutely, yeah. It's becoming a common thing. Every time I comment on these guys, they were all pros. and Tony was like a professional. He was like a baseball player. He didn't go out and do anything. Now, like Scott was just saying, he would maybe come across and just flip one underhand, over to first base and get him. But if you're good enough to do it and you get him out, that's not showing off. It's not, he wasn't trying to dress anything up. It's just, he knew he could make the play that way, and if you can do it, get the out. Nobody cares, as long as the guy's out and you're not screwing things up. But yeah, I mean, I loved watching Tony play. He was a very unassuming. He would just go out and do his job. He was a solid hitter. He was a clutch hitter. At least when we played against him, he always seemed to be a clutch hitter. And I just liked those guys that you could watch them. They didn't loaf out to their position. They always hustled out to their position. They played it the right way. They didn't do anything dirty. And obviously, it just seems like every guy on this list that we're going down, I keep saying the same thing about them. They were professionals and they were baseball players, and that's what I respected about all of them.
Scott, that 980 field percentage, that's 18th all time. That's impressive. I just looked that up.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, finish us out. Who's our last player tonight?
Yeah, he's so popular. Derek Jeter out of New Jersey. Once again, another one of my players playing all seasons with one team, playing from 95 to 2014 with the Yankees. Played 2,747 games, got over 3,465 hits and 260 home runs, compiling a pretty decent 310 batting average with 1,300 RBIs. He only made 254 errors. And it's funny, with him and Alan Trammell, they both had the exact same fielding percentage, 976. And then Derek had 1,408 double plays. This guy's got some credibility. He's got 14 All-Star appearances. He was a 5-time World Series champ, World Series MVP in 2000, was a Rookie of the Year in 96, 5 Gold Gloves in 04 through 06, 09, and 10, and he was a 5-time Silver Slugger Award. I don't need to go much further with Derek, the captain. I think he'll definitely be on the list, but I wonder sometimes if his offense is what carried him. But see what you guys think.
But the two plays they always show, Paul, is the ones diving into the stands and then the one in the playoffs against the A's where he got the ball to the home plate. So, Dave, with Jeter, he's actually my all-time favorite player. I got his bobblehead, I got his jersey and everything else. But I felt like he hung on a little too long. Like, he was pretty atrocious this last few seasons at shortstop. I think that dropped his stats down. But what do you remember him for, being that he was with the Yankees? Do you remember him as for his offense or some of those highlight defensive plays we do see?
I remembered him more as a really, really hard, a really tough out. I mean, if you threw him away, he reminded, well, Derek, I think, was a better overall hitter than Edgar Renteria, but if you threw him away, it was a base hit to right. It was just as simple as that. He didn't try to do too much. But if you tried to go in and you missed, he had the power to pull it and hit it out to left. And he just came through. It seemed like, I mean, the storybook ending to his career and the hits that he got in his last game and at home and all that stuff. And I mean, I think Tino Martinez should have gotten more Gold Gloves for picking balls out of the dirt from Derek, because Derek had a fielding flaw that I always saw, that he came up too fast. He got out of his legs too fast. He stood straight up and he spiked a lot of balls, and Tino would and pick a lot of them. And listen, I'm not trying to knock him at all, but I viewed him more as a leader, showing up every day and coming through in the clutch. And he don't get me wrong, he was good. He had a 976 all time, fielding average. But I believe personally, from my last year in 99, climbing up to now, it's a lot harder to make an error now than it was back then. I mean, we got errors back then that were like, now you see it. I mean, the hit's already up on the board, and it's like, so not knocking him at all. I mean, because he used to make some phenomenal plays, and he did have very good fielding mechanics. It was just that one thing of him standing up too early, he would spike a lot of balls. And but great player. Never always was very nice and personable, and goes back to a professional. He played a lot. He was rarely ever hurt. And I loved watching him play. Hated here in New York after we got our ass kicked every night in New York. But and he was a part of a lot of them. So, but yeah, heck of a player, and he definitely should be on the list.
Paul, that picture behind you is perfect because he's one of the all-time great jump throwers I've ever seen. That guy, he could get air and throw that ball across. So let's move in.
I was going to say, that
Go ahead.
picture just happens to come up if you like Google greatest shortstops. This is one of the pictures that comes up. So
Nice. Well, let's move into our vote, guys. This is a top 5. You can't pick your own. We all get to pick one. Paul, you're in my upper corner. Who are you taking?
I went into it pretty open-minded, but after listening to the arguments, I think I'd go with Ozzie Smith. Am I picking one or two?
Just one.
Okay, I think I'd go with Ozzie Smith, although Omar Vizquel, he's just pretty good too, but I'll do Ozzie.
Okay. Brian?
I'm actually going to go Fernandez. I was impressed with what Scott had to say with Fernandez there, so I'm going to go with him.
Okay. Scott?
All right, I got to go with, since I can't pick my guys, I got to go with Omar Vizquel for all his games played and being so great.
Vizquel? All right. And, wow. So with what's left, man, Jeter was more flashy than Trammell, so I think I'm gonna snag Jeter off the list. So we come to you, Dave. That leaves you with Alan Trammell, Cal Ripken, or Jimmy Rollins.
Cal Ripken.
Cal Ripken, okay. An honorable mention tonight.
Going
to
all
A-Rod.
around, Cal Ripken.
Yeah. So legacy battles, top 5 defensive shortstops of going back 40 years. Here we got Omar Vizquel, Tony Fernandez, Ozzie Smith, Derek Jeter, Cal Ripken. Nice job, guys. Let's move into our Q&A. Let's see. Scott, you're the only one that got 2 on the list tonight. So you get first question, then we'll go Paul, Brian, me.
All right, David, of course, I work for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, so I always throw my Canadian questions in here. You played with Terry Poole in '91. I think he was maybe in his last year.
Yep.
You played with Andy Stewart, who had a cup of coffee in '95 with the
Love
Royals.
Andy.
And then Dave McKay coached you in '98, '99 with the Cardinals. You got any stories about any of those 3 guys on what you remember or what type of guys they were?
I do. They were all great. Stubby Clapp was a good buddy of mine as well. Terry Poole got pissed. Sorry, but Hal McRae pinch ran me for Terry in a game, and Terry was beside himself, like, I'm faster than you, I'll race you. Because I was a rookie and he was, like you said, at the end of his career, and it was just hilarious because he was such a nice guy, but he got so offended that I pinch ran for him. So, and Andy Stewart's a great guy. I know he's been doing the Canadian baseball stuff for a while, right? And who was the other one you said? Sorry,
Dave McKay. He was
Dave McKay. Yeah. Dave was great. Shoot, he's still he's in better shape than all of us put together. I think he might be 70 now or something. He's amazing. I mean, just a great guy, and if there can be a coach that can inspire players to work harder, Dave McKay is the guy, because I mean, he was in such phenomenal shape, and and he was out there every day, and he was the one that had to throw BP to McGuire every day, when all the fans were out there in '98, '99, that when I was there. So he had that pressure of not having, letting Mac hit him 500 feet off of him every day. But yeah, all 3 great dudes. Yeah,
Cool. Excellent.
My question's about scouting. I was just curious, for people that don't know, has scouting evolved over the years? How would you say it is now compared to how it was in the the early '90s and stuff like that?
Gosh, I started scouting in 2002. No, wait, 2003 with the Red Sox. Or no, let me think. 3. I got 05. Sorry, I'm sorry, got ahead of myself. But so the '90s, I'm not too sure about. But in 05, it was more, tell us what you see. try to find as much about the person as you can, the makeup, how he fits in the clubhouse. You look for the athleticism, you look for all this stuff. The numbers didn't come in nearly as much until about probably, well, you mentioned Mike, you mentioned Theo earlier, and that's when it started. You had to start looking for those, you guys were saying wars, and I know what war means, but a lot of them I don't even know what they mean. I was what I saw is what I put down. I was just telling a story the other day. They wanted to know about Justin Verlander. I saw him pitch twice in 1 year in Dunedin, and then again in Lakeland. And they said, write up your thing before July. So I wrote it up, and my summary said, "We'll never get him Hall of Famer." And I sent it in, and they were kind of like, "That's it?" And well, what more do I need to say? We're never going to get him. We'll have to trade the whole team, and he's and he's a Hall of Famer. So, but I like to go with my own eyes. They used to send us who we were going to see and how good the players were and where they were ranked in the Baseball America top 30 on their list or whatever. And I told them to stop sending it to me, because I started reading everything that everybody was saying about him, and it was like, then I got my expectations built up, and then when I got there, they might have played fine, but they didn't match what the expectations I had from all the Baseball America stuff. So I just said, stop sending it to me. I want to watch them, I want to grade them, and I'll live with my decision. And I got a great piece of advice from an old scout, and he said, once you realize you're going to be wrong, you'll become a better scout, because you just trust what you see and you put it down and let it go at that. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. Everybody's going to be wrong. Nobody's going to be right every single time. I mean, Nelson Velasquez was with the Cubs when I was with him, when I was with the Cubs, and I didn't have him down as anything other than just kind of maybe an up and down guy, fourth outfield or whatever. Now he's got 14, 15 home runs with the Royals. And somebody said, what did you say about him? And I said, I didn't have him as that. I really didn't have him in. I thought he was lazy, blah, blah, blah. So I'll admit when I'm wrong. Everybody's going to be wrong. And you can also go in, and this is the hard thing about it, Paul, is you go in, and I remember this because my first year doing it, I went to Appleton. Not Appleton, but it was Kenosha. And the Twins were there, and it was 38 degrees, and I'm watching these two high profile pitchers. And one was 18 and he was from Florida, and one was, whatever. He was throwing 86 miles an hour, and I'm reading 93, 94, split, this, that, and the other. And I mean, he looked like Kurt Schilling, but nothing was coming out of his hand. And I didn't have the experience to think, wait, he's from Florida. Now he's pitching in 38-degree weather. Maybe he's, it's just not, what I'm saying? And a veteran scout might have gotten that better. So, a lot of it has to do with how long you do it, and you just start figuring it out. And when you're sitting in the stands with those guys, a lot of times when I was young, just shut up, listen, learn, and try to apply that as you move on. But the numbers have come in so much now that I truly believe that's one of the reasons a lot of us older, I'm 56, and, I'd love to still be in the game, but, they want more of the guys that understand the numbers better. And I'm more of an eye test guy. So, but yeah, I think it's changed a significant amount, since probably about 2007.
So, Dave, let me take you back. September 1994, Hal McRae is fired by the Royals, despite guiding you guys to a 14-game winning streak before the strike ended the season. What was the sense among you and your teammates when you received the news? And did you agree with the firing? I mean, McRae was he's a winning coach, winning manager.
Yeah, and Brian and I played against each other in high school. We roomed with each other in the minors. And, I spent a lot of time at the McRae house because I grew up in Sarasota and he was in Bradenton, and Hal lived in Bradenton. So I was over there, and I went to a junior college in Bradenton, so I would go over to their house and Brian would, hang out with us. So it was tough. Hal, when I got sent down my first year in 91, and then John Wathen got fired and Hal took over. And Hal's first question was, who should be up here that's not up here? And the coaches apparently said me. So I got called back up. So I felt a little bit of loyalty that he asked the question and he trusted his coaches, so, and obviously I already had a relationship with him. So I liked him. I had no issues, with Hal at all. And, as a player, you kind of got to separate yourself from those type decisions, because it's not under your control. And, if you let it affect you too much, hey, look, Bob Boone took over and he loved me as no other manager, loved me. He signed on my 30th birthday. He signed a bottle of wine, said, to the last manager you'll ever have. That's how, and he confided in me. He asked my opinion and, blah, blah, blah. And then he got fired. And then Tony Muser comes in and it's like, I don't know Tony Muser. So I wanted Bob Boone there because he loved me,
Right.
So, I mean, it's hard because I don't know the reason why he got fired, how, but, he was nothing but nice to me. And, and obviously it was tough. Brian, I think, had gotten traded to the Blue Jays by then, but I can't remember, but yeah, it was tough because anytime somebody else comes in, you got to learn them. I knew Wathen, and then I already knew Hal, so that was kind of easy. And we did well, like you said. We played really well in '94. I mean, we had a really good season. It was tough to go on strike because we weren't very good. I mean, I think maybe '91 was our best season up until '94. So, but yeah, it's always tough, and it's not the player's decision. And I don't think it's always the player's fault, is what I always say. When the manager gets fired, it's not his fault, it's ours, because we didn't play for him. Unless it's just blatant that they did, something that they just weren't doing things right, or they lost the clubhouse or whatever. That was not the case with Hal. So I always thought there's not a manager in baseball that loses a game. We lose the game. So, but I will say this, Tony La Russa, who I played for, he was never going to lose a game. He was always going to be ready for whatever move, had to be made. So, but yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. And it's always tough on players because you do develop relationships, and not only with the manager, but the coaches that leave with him, because the new manager always brings in his guys. So you're seeing coaches go out that you've developed a really good relationship with too, and they didn't do anything wrong, and you feel kind of guilty as a player that we didn't play better for them.
So let's build off on that 94 season there a little bit. 64-51, Kansas City Royals, the strike hits. I looked at your roster. I really liked it. You got, I guess maybe they were considered cast-offs. I don't know what they were considered, but Wally Joyner, Gary Gaetti, Vince Coleman, Dave Henderson, Hubie Brooks, Jose Lean, and the pitching staff. I mean, you got three aces at the top: David Cohn, Tom Gordon, Kevin Apier, closer Jeff Montgomery. And guys, we're only a few games back. What do you think that team could have done had the season continued? Could you have made a playoff run and maybe something great? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think so. I thought we had a really good, a really solid overall team. Like you said, like you named like 3 or 4 guys that were cast-offs, but they were good backups. Hubie Brooks, Dave Henderson. I was a utility guy that could play anywhere. It was just a good overall, and we got along. Everybody got along, and it was just it was kind of a magical run too, because we won like 12 or 13 in a row towards the end of July, I think. And Bob Hamlin was hitting a home run to win a game every other night. And they had the the foam hammers out, in the outfield, and it was just every game. It went from 10,000 people to 12 to 15 to 25 to 35. Then it's packed, and we never packed the house in Kansas City, but we just rode that wave for as long as we could. But at the same time, we knew that deadline was coming up, for the strike. And unfortunately, it hit us. But I mean, it was just a good bunch of guys that we had, and we all got along. There wasn't any friction. And that's one of the things, going back to you, Paul, about scouting is finding out who fits, who's going to fit in. Does that guy know 2 or 3 guys on the current team? So if we trade for him, he's going to have friends and he's going to fit right in, and he's not going to be a disruption if he's not playing as much as he's used to and stuff like that. So to the scouting standpoint, our scouts did a great job of getting a group of guys that they felt could handle maybe not playing as much as they were used to playing. So I really enjoyed that year. That was one of my winningest years, that I had on a team. And like just the guys you mentioned, it just brings back all those memories. I was waiting to hear more names because I was like, who else was on that team? Because they were such good guys.
Same order, guys. One more.
All right. I guess to the St. Louis days again. Obviously, you played with Big Mac in '98 when he hit 70, and then again in '99 he hit 65. And you're up and down both years some. But what was the clubhouse like? What was Mark like as a teammate? I mean, he was obviously crushing these home runs like no one else was in the history of the game. And just how did it work? Like, how did it go those 2 years in St. Louis in the clubhouse and on the fields, and for you guys and the other players and Mark and everything combined?
Oh, for me, it was awesome. I mean, I got unlucky and got hurt a couple times, so I had to go on a couple rehab assignments, that kept me out for a while. But I mean, when I was there, I called it Hollywood Midwest, because we had every celebrity. I got pictures with Ric Flair and Bruce Springsteen and Bill Goldberg. And I mean, I'm a wrestling fan, obviously, because I just threw out 2 wrestlers, but everybody came through, because they wanted to be a part of that. And I thought Mark handled it amazing in '98. I thought him and Sammy both handled it amazing because there was a group of us. There was about a group of 5 of us. It was like Pat Kelly, Tom Lampkin, Kent Merker, myself, and Mark. We kind of all went out to dinner on the road, and we were kind of his buffer, because everybody wanted a piece of him, but he would sign and he would do the thing. And we always would ask him, like, dude, it's got to be just, you can't go anywhere, whatever. But he would handle it great. But when he got to the clubhouse, it was a joke that I had that I'll tell. We had a running joke that once he got to the clubhouse, he bitched about everything. Like in it. And I said, I'll bet you 10, and I didn't make as much money as he did, obviously, but I bet him one day. I said, oh my God, I go, would you shut up? I go, I'll bet you $10,000 that you can't not bitch about something until 5 o'clock. And it was like 3. And he goes, you're on. And like at 2:15 or whatever it was, he goes, bet's off. But I understood it. I understood it because he was trying to have that persona out there and be nice. That nobody can be nice that long every single day. You got to come in and just vent a little bit. And so I thought he handled it phenomenal. He was great to me. He came to my house one time in Kansas City when we played the Royals in Interleague. I had a party for everybody, and he saw my collection of memorabilia. So if he would get something like double, like if he signed something for somebody and they would send it to him, I'd come in one day and I'd look at my chair and there would be Muhammad Ali signed boxing glove. And he goes, I already had one. So I just figured, I saw your collection. So, but that's the stuff he would do. And I really appreciated it. And I thought he handled it amazing. with all the stuff that went around it with both him and Sammy, years later, it diminished it obviously, but I've never seen somebody focused every single at bat like he was that year. It was amazing to watch somebody to be that locked in the entire year. Just the way he was, it was something special, and I was glad that I was a part of it. I mean, it was so special. I think he hit 135, so we had 140 home runs together those 2 years, so it was pretty good.
Cool.
Slip that in to make sure that we were listening. I don't think you were listening, Mike.
No, I heard
Everybody
it.
laughed
I
except
heard it.
Mike.
No, I heard it. I heard it.
Mike, I looked at this and I thought this was extremely impressive. But as I was reading up on you, it said when you were in college, I'm in St. Pete, Florida, so you were about 45 minutes south of me, but said you played every infield and outfield position and actually served as an emergency pitcher. And I wondered, is that true? How'd that come to be? Is that something that was just naturally came to you, or is that something you worked on? And then I guess the final question would be, looking back on it all, are you happy you ended up shortstop, second base, or do you kind of wish you might have been in another position?
You know what? I just did what I had to do to my dream was to play in the big leagues. And, when I went to Manatee Community College, which you probably have heard, well, now it's State College of Florida,
Yeah.
but, people would say, what are you majoring in? I said, baseball. I mean, it was never a doubt. My dad played in the big leagues. My brother was playing at University of Georgia. It was like, it wasn't a doubt I was going to play in the big leagues. It was just how I was going to get there. And so once I got there, I got very lucky to have my dad having pitched, for 6 years in the 60s and, gave me very good advice, got me to a big league camp after my first year of signing, and got to stand next to Kurt Stillwell and take ground balls next to him and Brad Wellman and Bill Pacoda and just different guys that were on the team. And that made a huge difference in my life and in my career, because I knew right then I could play in the big leagues. I just had to hit, because I knew I could field with them, and that was huge for that to happen. But no, once I got there, I made the team as a utility player because, I just played everywhere this one spring training in 1991. And, they said Brad Wellman, actually, who I was going up against for the utility job, said, if they ask you if you've ever played third, tell them yes. Even if you haven't, tell them yes. If it's left field, tell them yes. Don't ever say no. And so that's what I did. And I just figured it out. And I was athletic enough to do it. And so I just did what I had to do. Yes, of course, I would have loved to have played shortstop more, because I felt that was my best position. And I was a good outfielder. I mean, I was a really good center fielder. But shortstop would have been my preferred. Obviously, I got that one chance when we had Offerman in 96, and he had made a couple errors early in the season and he had a little injury or whatever. So I got to play 130 something games. And, obviously I proved it defensively. I could do it, but I had torn a rotator cuff in my left shoulder diving for a ball in spring training. And I could only get 3 cortisone shots during the season. And so my last one was in September. And so I went I think I hit 040 my last, month. And so my average really, really dipped, but it was one of those choices of, do I tell them I can't play anymore, because then they're going to say, well, you're skinny and you're not durable enough, or, play and then let my hitting suffer. And then they'll say, well, you can't hit enough, so it was one of those flip the coin and see. And I said, screw it, I'm going to play. I wanted to play. And, but it was great. I loved going out there every day and playing, but it was also fun being a utility guy. I tell everybody all the time, I go, hell, it was fun. I'd walk in there and I'd look, and sometimes my name would be down with the and others. And other times I'd go, oh, I'm playing third. Cool. Or right field or whatever. And, with LaRussa, he asked me one day, he said, where do you want to play tomorrow? And I said, I don't care. And he goes, no, where do you want to play? I said, short. He goes, nope. And I go, third? He goes, nope. And I go, all right. And I go, first? He goes, yep. Because McGuire needed a day off. So it was like, all right. I've never played first base in my life. I was like, all right. I didn't even have a first baseman's glove. I had to ask Greg Colbrin for the Diamondbacks to borrow his. So yeah, I didn't care. It was just I was in the big leagues and I was living my dream. And so if I was on the field, I was happy.
So Dave, you mentioned earlier about scouting pitchers. I got a crazy hypothetical for you. If you could have sort of like an all-time draft and you could pick one pitcher to start your team with, which pitcher would you be going with?
Who would I go with? Depend upon what time of their career, but I would probably say Maddox, because I think he would have a big impact on the other guys behind him, because he was so smart. Randy was great. Johnson, I mean, obviously, I was 1 for 31 against him until my last 3 at bats. But I just think that Greg, getting to know him and hearing the stories about him, obviously he was a phenomenal pitcher, but the guys that played with him that I know, Merker and Avery and all those guys, they say sitting in the dugout with him, they learn so much about the game and how to set hitters up. They would say it literally happened 5 times where he would go, guys, watch out. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? And then the guy would foul one right into the dugout.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, come on. Like, yeah, I didn't. And they're like dead serious. So
Wow.
he knew what the pitcher was going to throw, and he knew how the hitter was going to react. And, to have that type of mind, I just think, and obviously, unbelievable. How many Cy Youngs did he win? 5 or something like that? But, so I probably Maddox. Yeah. At least from the guys that I faced.
We'll get you out of here with this tonight. Maybe the other guys were afraid to ask it, but I'm going to throw it out here. I'm going to take you back to June 10th, 1997. What's considered maybe the greatest catch in baseball history. I thought for sure it was going to be extra bases. What's running through your mind when Jim Edmonds he robbed you? Let's be honest. He robbed you with possibly the greatest catch ever.
Well, first I was surprised I was hitting, because it was the bottom of the 8th and it was a tie game, and usually I'd have been pinch hit for by then. So, but it was, Jason Dixon was pitching, and Joe Madden was their bench coach, and so he always jokingly said, I made you famous. I said, you didn't make me famous. Nobody even knows who hit it. I go, you made Edmonds famous, because he moved him way in, because I didn't have any power, and 2 strikes, breaking ball. I stayed on it, hit it as good as I could, dead center, and I was between first and second when he caught it, because I thought it was over his head, and there was 2 men on. I figured I had either game winning triple or maybe inside the Parker, because you see anybody diving to dead center. The right fielder or the left fielder better be hauling ass to back them up, or I'm gonna score, because I could run a little bit, and then all of a sudden I see him roll over and hold the ball up, and I'm just like, you have got to be kidding me. And had some words for him as he jogged off the field. But our fans were giving him, a standing ovation. Hell, I should have been too. It was, you watch it and you count how many steps he took, and just, diving straight towards a wall. He did. I don't know if he knew where he was exactly when he dove, but that takes some guts to just to lay out like that and catch it. And I don't know if you ever saw it, but the ball actually popped out of his glove, and he put his bare hand over it to keep it in. If that thing rolled out of his glove, it was inside the park. No doubt in my mind it would have been. But if that's what I'm remembered for, great. I hope I'm remembered for playing a lot of positions and playing hard. But
you pissed him off, Mike. Look how mad he is.
Yeah.
You pissed him off.
I'm really Yeah, you did. Damn it.
We mentioned it before we started recording briefly, so it's all good.
No, yeah, it was a hell of a catch. So, yep.
Well, thank you so much, David Howard, for joining
Absolutely.
us. We appreciate you coming on and being here with us tonight. So
I hope I wasn't too long-winded, but enjoyed it.
no, perfect. I'll remind everybody, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notifications button. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time. Have a great night.